Hilchos Temidin Umusafin Perek Sheni, the laws of the daily sacrifice and services, the constant ones, and the additional sacrifices and services, chapter 2. Yesterday we introduced the concept of the Korban Tamid, the daily sacrifice in the morning and in the evening. And today we're going to talk about another constant thing that was in the Beis HaMikdash, the fire on the Mizbeach. There had to always be a fire on the Mizbeach, and today we're going to get the details on that, how many fires, what they were used for, and all the halachas surrounding that. So the Rambam says, halacha aleph, mitzvah saseh, it's a positive commandment, liyos eish yekuda al ha-mizbeach tamid, to have a burning fire constantly on the Mizbeach, and this is the outside altar, the one outside in the temple courtyard. Shenemar, as it says, and we say this verse every morning, in Karbanos, eish tamid tukad al ha-mizbeach, a constant fire should be burning on the Mizbeach. There are many times in this passage where it talks about fire. And we're going to see that Rambam goes through each one and talks about how they hint at different fire piles. But the general verse, in the Rambam's opinion, is this last one. There should be a constant fire burning on the Mizbeach. The verse actually ends with the words, Lo sichbe, it should never be put out. Because from here we learn that there needs to always be something burning on the Mizbeach. Afal pi she'ha'esh yarda min hashamayim, says the Rambam, you should know, even though miraculously the fire actually came down from heaven, Hashem made a miracle and the fire was always burning on the Mizbeach. Mitzvah lahavi eish min hahedyot, it was still a mitzvah to bring fire from the regular people. In other words, Hashem says, I'm going to send the fire down, but you also got to light. Human beings got to do something. Shenemar, as it says in a different verse, v'nosnu b'nei Aaron hakoyanim, or actually the verse says hakohen eish ala mizbeach. The sons of Aaron the Kohen put a fire on the altar, which means they have to do actively. Halacha beis baboiker orchin eitzim. Every morning they would set up wood. V'orchin beresh hamizbeach ma'aracha gedola shalish, and they would set up on the mizbeach what we call the big pile for fire, right over here. Massive logs, made them into a nice little bonfire type of design, and that would be the main fire where all the sacrifices were burnt. Shenemar, as it says, Uvier aleha hakoyen eitzim baboiker baboiker. The Kohen should burn a fire on the Mizbeach out of wood every morning. V'chein, additionally, besides for setting up a normal wood pile, mitzvah lahalois shnei gzarim shal eitz im tamid shal shachar yoiser al atzei hamaracha. There was a mitzvah to bring specifically 2 blocks of wood. Can you see him? Can you see him carrying the 2 blocks? This came up with the Korban Tamid. In other words, this wood pile on the Mizbeach was set up first. And then together, as part of the offering of the morning sacrifice, they would bring 2 additional logs of wood to add to the wood pile. Shenemar, same verse, Uvier aleha hakoyen eitzim baboiker. The Kohen should add, so to speak, burn more wood onto the fire every morning. In the evening, the early afternoon, when they brought the daily afternoon sacrifice, they would also add 2 logs to the wood pile. Shenemar, there's another verse that says, V'orchu eitzim al ha'esh, they should set up wood on the fire. And from this extra verse we learn, Mipi hashmuel lamdu, from tradition, we understand this verse to mean, Shebetamid shabin harbayim akasav medaber. That verse is talking about the afternoon sacrifice. They would add 2 logs of wood. Halacha gimel, even though both in the morning and in the afternoon they had 2 logs of wood, there was one difference. Shnei gzarim shal ben harbayim mal dinoisan shnei koyanim. In the afternoon, the 2 logs of wood were brought to the Mizbeach by 2 different Kohanim. Kol echad ve'echad be'etzichidi b'yadei, each one carrying 1 piece of wood in his hand. Shenemar ve'orchu, because in the verse from which we learn the obligation of the afternoon, it says it in the plural. Lashon Rabim, ve'orchu, they should set up wood. They meaning at least 2 Kohanim. Harei kan shnayim, so you have 2. Aval shel shachar be'koyenecha, but the morning one Kohen, as in this picture, brought both logs of wood. And the Rambam doesn't say it clearly, but it's the same thing. In the verse from which we learn it, it says it in the singular. Uvi'er aleha hakohen. 1 Kohen should burn the wood, and therefore 1 Kohen brought it in the morning, 2 in the afternoon. Halacha dalet. Shalosh ma'arachis shal eish oisin b'reish hamizbeach b'chol yom. 3 fire piles had to be set up on top of the Mizbeach every day. Rishona, the first one, what we just talked about, ma'aracha gedola, it's called the big pile. Sha'aleha makriven atamidim shara karbanis. That's where the daily sacrifice was offered, and all other sacrifices throughout the day were offered unto this fire. As we saw in the last set of laws, right? There's tons of parts of animals that have to be brought on the altar. For oila, for a burnt offering, it's the whole thing. For a peace offering, it's just some of the inside fats, whatever it is. That was all offered in this first wood pile, the big one. Shniya bitzida, the second one was on its side. Look over here, according to most opinions, it's this one. So the big one was over here. If you walked up to the Mizbeach, it was on your right side. Then to your left was the second pile. And the second pile, we'll soon see the third one. But first the second one, Ktana, that's smaller than the first. This was the fire pile, which was explicitly just used for coals, to create coal and ash, to take inside for the daily incense offering, which we'll talk about also later. Every day there was the Ketairas. Where did the coals for the incense come from? From this second pile. That's all it was for. Shlishis ein aleha klum. The third one in the back, even smaller. Nothing was on it. It wasn't used for any purpose. Ela lekayim mitzvah sa'esh. This was the one that fulfilled the mitzvah of the constant fire. Shenemar eish tamid tukat. That verse where it says you should have a constant fire, that was fulfilled with this one. The other fires go in and out, turn them on and off. That third one was the one that was always there to fulfill that mitzvah of having a constant fire. Now, that verse, Eish Tamid Tukat, talks about the constant fire. Now that Rambam says, if you examine the verses, you'll see other references to fire. From here we learn the three piles. In Piashmu Lamdu, we learn from tradition, Shezeh Shenemar, at the verse that says, Al Moikda Al Hamizbeach. Moikda is like the burning pile, or the burning fire. On the altar, Zuma Racha Gedela. Those words refer to the great wood pile, the first one. The Eish HaMizbeach Tukat Bay. The end of the same verse says, another time, fire. The fire of the Mizbeach should burn on it. Zuma Racha Shniya Shal Ketairas. That's the second one for the coals for the incense. And then there's another verse, V'ha Eish HaMizbeach Tukat Bay. Zuma Racha Shlishis Shal Kiyum Eish. It says again, the fire on the Mizbeach should burn on it. That's the third fire. The one that was just constantly keeping the fire going. Limbs and fats that didn't fully get consumed from the sacrifices. Where were they placed? On the side of the big pile. So the big pile was used for sacrifices, and on the side of it they would put leftover bones, limbs, fats that didn't burn the whole day. A person extinguishes the fire in the Mizbeach, he gets lashes, clearly, do not extinguish it. Afilu gacheles achas, even one coal. Don't think it means you put out the whole fire. Even if there was one burning coal and you put that out purposely, afilu hayrida me'ala mizbeach v'kiba. Even if you took it off the Mizbeach, and over there you extinguished it, loika you get lashes. Aval eish machta, but fire in a fire pan. The eish menorah, but the fire burning on the menorah. Here. These are the fire pans. They took them out of the fire, or the menorah. Shehechina b'mizbeach lahadlik mimena. Even if you prepared the fire on the mizbeach to light it from it, in other words, you walked up to the mizbeach to get fire to light the menorah with. Afal pisha kiba esan b'resha mizbeach pater. Even though you then extinguished it on the top of the mizbeach, even you're exempt. Shari nitkal mitzvah acheres, because you already designated it for a different mitzvah. You took this fire out of the mizbeach fire pile with the intention to do incense or to do the menorah. I don't call it fire of the mizbeach. Look at the verses. The verse keeps saying, Eish tami tukad al mizbeach, Eish hamizbeach, Eish al mizbeach. The Torah constantly links the fire to the altar. The moment with your intent or with your action, you detached the fire from the mizbeach, it's no longer subject to the prohibition of putting it out. When they set up this wood pile, the big wood pile for the main pyre, you set it up on the east of the mizbeach, and you should design it in a way that it's clear that the fire was set up from the east, right? Because the ramp, as we saw, comes on the south side. This is the south side of the Mizbeach, which means this is the east side. So you set it up on the eastern side of the Mizbeach, and you actually begin from this side, from here, from the east, building out towards the west. They put space between the logs. Like when you build a proper teepee, right? You want to kind of put a bunch of logs, but you spread them out with some space. There could be some air. And it was set up in such a way that the edges of the logs on the inside would touch the ash pile in the middle of the Mizbeach, v'hu nikra tapuach, which was called the apple. The big apple, not New York City, but it was called the apple because there was a massive mountain almost of ash that would accumulate in the middle of the Mizbeach. So in this picture, it's not so accurate because this is the tapuach. This is the big ash pile. And the logs of this pile here were supposed to extend all the way till they touched that ash pile.
What was that ash pile doing there? There must have been a fire there, right?
No, it was just all the accumulated ash from all three piles was moved to the middle. After you set up the big pile, the Kohen would go and choose beautiful quality fig wood. And he would set up the second pile on the southwestern corner. Right, the first one was southeast. This is now southwest. 4 amas, about 6 feet away, towards the north. So this is the south side over here. You're not setting it up on the very edge. You pushed it a little bit forward northward, about 4 amas. With about 5 sa'ah. Sa'ah is a dry measurement of coals. On Shabbos, a little more. 8 sa'ah of coals, because that fire was used for another use on Shabbos. The 2 spoons that would accompany the showbread were burnt there every Shabbos. The third one, even though in the picture it's over here, could be anywhere. It's only there for one purpose, to keep the fire going. Put it wherever you want. And you kindle the fire there. In other words, that's the first one that you kindle. You don't light a fire on the bottom of the Mizbeach, then walk up. No lighters. Yeah, you don't light it on the bottom and then walk up with a lit fire and then put the flame to the wood. You have to light it on the altar. As it says, where's the verse here? The fire of the Mizbeach should burn on it. That means only on the altars where you make the fire. The actual kindling should be done on top of the Mizbeach. Halacha Yud, talking about the Mizbeach, we move to another mitzvah. The mitzvah which began the daily service every day. Haramas hadesha nela Mizbeach b'chol yoyim mitzvah saseh. Lifting a little bit of ash, removing a little bit of ash from the Mizbeach every day was a positive mitzvah. Shanemar, as it says, v'heirim es hadeshen. He should remove the ash. It says clearly in Torah. It's actually a Kohanic service. It was done every day in the temple by a Kohen. The Kohen clothing that he would wear when he removed the ashes had to be lesser quality than the one you would use for anything else. Why? Because it says, Ufashat as begadav, v'lavash begadim acherim. He takes off his regular clothes, puts on other clothes, v'heirim es hadeshen, and he removes the ash. Now actually in the verse it says, v'hoitzi es hadeshen, removing the ash outside of the city. That's when he would switch the clothes. But the Rambam is of the opinion that this verse is also being applied to the original actual service of removing the ash from the pile of the Mizbeach, which creates a big controversy in the commentaries. They all want to know what the Rambam's source for this is, but bottom line is, the Rambam says any Kohen who was involved with removing the ash had to be wearing lesser quality clothing. As the metaphor goes, other clothes means not weekday clothes, it means just lesser quality Kohen clothes. It's not honorable for a waiter to pour a cup for his master with the same clothing that he used to cook the food. Now, when you're cooking and get dirty, you don't want to go with those clothes to serve at the table. Same thing, the Kohen dealing with ash, dirty physically, you wear lower quality Kohen clothes, and later on you go back to the service with the regular clothes. Halacha Yud Aleph, a Masai termin adeshen. When was the removal of the ashes done every day? Every day it was done right by dawn. So the morning sacrifice Tamid began a little afterwards, once the whole eastern horizon lit up from the dawn. But the Trumas Hadeshen was done right at dawn. Uber on holidays, festivals, mitchilas shlishem tzoi shalayla, way earlier. at the beginning of the middle third of the night. So 4 hours into the night. On Yom Kippur, it's a lot to do. They began at midnight, the removal of the ashes. Halacha Yud Beis Keitzad Termin. How exactly was the removal process done? Misha Zachal Yisrael, whichever Kohen won the rights to do Trumas Hadeshen, because it was a raffle. Talmud says that there used to be a race. It wasn't always a raffle. Whoever was there on time would gather at the bottom of the ramp, and they had a race to the top of the Mizbeach. Whoever got to the top first, he won. And one time, the Mishnah says, unfortunately, there was 2 Kohanim running up the ramp, and one of them saw the other was going to win, and he pushed his friend off the ramp, and he broke his foot. So the court said, oh, okay, it's getting dangerous, so we're going to make it into a raffle. Any Kohanim that come to a raffle. So the Rambam uses the word Zacha. Whoever wins the raffle, Toivel, he went to the mikveh, went to immerse himself. The Loivesh Bigdei Harama, he would put on the clothing that was used, the lower quality clothing that was used for removal of the ashes. Umekadesh Yadav V'Raglav, wash his hands and feet, as every Kohen did in the morning. Right, here you can see it. This is the kiyar. They would use to wash their hands and feet. V'oimrim Loi, and they would actually tell him, He Zahir, be careful. Shema Tiga Bakli, Acha Tekadesh Yadecha V'Raglecha, do not touch the vessel, the utensil that you're going to use, till you wash your hands and feet. He takes the pan, it was a silver pan. It was always placed in the corner between the ramp and the Mizbeach at the west side of the ramp. This is the ramp going up. You're looking at it standing in the east. So the pan was always on the other side, on the west side of the ramp, just next to the Mizbeach.
So the west side, you said the west side is the other side?
Right, because in this picture we're looking towards the west.
Yeah, so this is on the east of the ramp.
You're standing on the east. So the pan was sitting originally on the west, then the Kohen would take it. Takes the pan, goes to the top of the altar. Here he is on the top of the altar. With the pan, he would move the coals this way and that way. And he would pull out from the coals that were fully consumed in the heart of the fire. Go down to the ground on the ramp. Turn to the north. Right, because he's coming down the ramp. The ramp is on the south side of the Mizbeach. Turn to the north means you're turning, as he's walking, backwards, towards the north. He walked about 10 amas, about 15 feet, towards the north. And he would pile up the coals that he took on the floor at a distance of about 3 handbreadths from the ramp. Just about, so if he walks 10 amas, just about over here where this little protrusion is over here. Same place where they used to put the crop, the inside of the bird that wasn't offered on the altar, and all the ash that came from the inner mizbeach of the incense and the menorah that would accumulate every day. This handful that you would take from the top of the altar, come down, put it on the floor, that's the mitzvah. The mitzvah of removal of the ashes every day, that's what it is. Take a pan, go up, take 1 panful of ashes, come down, put it on the floor. By the way, according to the Talmud, there was a miracle, it would get absorbed into the ground. Right. The ash would swallow. Then, halacha yud gimel, achar sheyarad zeh shataram, after the Kohen, who was the winner to do this removal of the ashes, as soon as he came down from the Mizbeach, that's it, temple's in operation. Ratzim echav HaKohanim, all the other Kohanim who were there, would run, umekadchen yadeim v'ragleim b'meheira, and they would wash their hands and feet quickly. They would take the pitchforks and the other types of fire tools, and they would go up to the top of the Mizbeach. Here you can see them carrying. This guy has his pitchfork. They go up to the top of the Mizbeach. Any limbs from last night, or innards from sacrifices which didn't fully consume, they would put them to the sides of the altar. If there's too much, the sides couldn't hold them. They would put them on the ramp at the level of the walkway around the Mizbeach. Then from all the fires that accumulated all around, they would gather all the ash into the middle. Umaldin oisei arema al gabe atapuach, pile it up on top of the middle ash pile. V'gerfin oisa ha'arema b'psachter, and then they would clear out that entire pile with the psachter. Psachter was a massive bowl. V'hu kli gadol shemachzik lesech. It's a huge vessel that contains a lesech. A lesech is 15 se'ah. So a mikvah has to be 40 se'ah. This is a bowl that could hold 15 se'ah. It's huge. Umaridin oisa lamata, and they would take it all the way down with the ash. On festivals, they wouldn't take down the big ash pile. They left the pile big and tall in the middle of the mizbeach, because it was beautiful for the mizbeach. It looks beautiful and pleasant to the eye, this massive pile. Halacha Yudalet. Kol misha yirtza min hakohanim. Anybody who wanted from the kohanim, memali min hadeshen shayridu lamata umoitzi chutz la'ir l'shefech hadeshen, could fill up a sack or whatever it was from the ash that was taken down, and they would take it outside the city to the place where the ashes were poured out. It's called Shefech HaDeshen. It was like an area outside Yerushalayim, everything was just burnt. There was no raffle for this. Whoever wanted could do it. Nevertheless, even though there was no raffle, and even though it was kind of degrading, it was very dirty work, no Kohen was ever lazy to take out the ashes, which is a big lesson in spiritual terms. Many times the Jewish people, we want to be occupied with the inside stuff, but we don't want to go to the outside. We want to take care of ourselves, but we don't want to go out there and do what it has to do. But the Kohens were never lazy about it. They did what they had to do. The Rambam concludes, even though removing the ash is not called a real avodah, a real service, Kohen that were blemished couldn't remove it. When they would take them outside the city, they would put them in a place purposely where the wind didn't blow strongly. Nor would the rivers, the streams, drag it away. Yeah, you put it in focus. Exactly, you put it in a proper place. You don't spread it out. It says you place it. Now this verse is talking about the ash next to the mizbeach. It says v'samay eitel ha-mizbeach. You place it near the altar. But from this we actually learn to all the ash services that you have to place it down nicely. She'anichenu benachas. You put it down calmly. There's no winds and no waters. V'asur lehanisbay, and it's forbidden to have any benefit from it. The ash would just sit there outside, and that's where it would be taken. And that was the mitzvah of dealing with the ashes every day in the holy temple.